Hi everybody. So for this next interview, I'm talking to Marc, who's the CEO and founder of Aviaze, the app. I know hopefully many people have heard of it. Hi Marc, great to we've done a lot of things together over the last couple of years. You've
It's
been
good to see you,
great
John.
support with your Sunny Swift videos and things. So,
Very good to see you, John. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
and it'd be really interesting to hear a little bit about what kind of flying you've been doing over the course of the year. I know you hadn't had, like a lot of people, hadn't had the chance to fly so much at the
Yeah.
start of the year. And how did that feel when you got back into the cockpit? And then what kind of
Yeah,
flying have
well,
you been doing this summer?
I guess me, like most of us, beginning of the summer, I was a bit rusty. I haven't had flown much before because of the COVID, especially, and because of the winter too. Usually, I fly GA mostly in the north of Spain, near Barcelona. That's where well, actually, my dad and I we fly a small, different, especially vintage aircrafts. We fly in an airstrip nearby the French border. So winter is not that bad, but especially last winter because of COVID and the winter itself, we didn't fly that much. So at the beginning of the summer, it was a bit rusty, I guess like everyone else. And but yeah, I mean, I this summer was pretty good flying wise. At the beginning, several things happened to me. Remember this day that I was with my dad. We were going to fly a Chipmunk. So it's vintage or vintage aircraft that we fly there, and so it wouldn't start up. It wouldn't start up. We were like, oh, so we tried with the engine starter. It has an engine starter. We tried manually. It didn't start. It didn't start. Oh, I had forgotten the magnetos on the back seat off. So things like this happened, and it's because of the recency, of course, and the
And
skill
and, then-
set.
and what kind of things have what kind of flying have you managed to do? Have you done mostly just local flying or
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah,
cross-country
yeah,
flights as well?
yeah. Yeah, the thing is, because of the restrictions and for several reasons, I mean, I couldn't really plan any big travel, any big trips around Europe, or even within Spain. We planned one to go from the airstrip to Madrid and back, but at the end it didn't come out. So mostly it's been local flying. As I was telling you before, I had the chance also to practice some formation flight with vintage aircraft, and that was pretty good. I mean, I really like formation flight. It's not that I've done a lot in my flying experience, but I'm getting used to it now, and it's great. So I was flying the other day with my dad. He was in a biplane, and me, I was in the Chipmunk that I mentioned, and we managed to get some nice formations. It was really good. Unfortunately, I don't have many pictures of that day because I was actually flying. We were flying by ourselves. So at one point there was a radio on the biplane that stopped transmitting. So I actually couldn't hear them. They could hear me. So my dad could hear me, but I couldn't hear. My dad. So then formation obviously became very very complicated. So we start communicating like, okay, can you hear me? So rock your wings. So we start rocking wings, but of course the formation flight at that point of the flight became pretty bad anyway.
Yeah, I guess it's one of these things, isn't it? It's that we understand. We see that a lot, where it's the ability as a pilot to be able to handle changing situations, kind of try and stay calm and kind of figure out, okay, I've got a problem, and kind of work the problem while focusing on flying the aircraft safely at the same time.
Yeah, it's what they call resilience, is it? I
Yeah.
mean, being resilient and yeah, I guess especially I was pretty lucky because as I said at the beginning of the summer, I didn't have any like non-normal situation. Probably if I would have had one non-normal situation at the beginning of the summer, where I was not really, recent flying, and probably I was suffering from some sort of skill fate like everyone else. Probably, yeah, I would have gotten some sort of startle effect. But I was lucky, no, nothing happened. So yeah, mostly it was now these last weeks that a couple of things happened like this one. Yeah, there was this other landing that we landed on an airstrip, and actually there was kind of a pylon on the ground that I couldn't actually see, and I almost hit like the wing, you know, the wingtip actually. So I almost hit that. So I saw a guy like in the ground like doing, and so what's he doing? So I just decided to stop. Luckily I stopped, and then he came. He got closer. He pointed like some sort. Yeah, it was some sort of pylon made of wood, or I don't know. And so things like this, of course, in aviation, if you have the time available, it's better to stop and just think it through.
I think it's quite a good example of the, you know, reflecting on things afterwards, but particularly actually also you say there about, you know, new pylons and things around the airfield, and you know, I think that's one of the things where, you know, we've seen in COVID there's been a lot of changes.
Yeah, and not only that,
in the system, and yeah.
And not only pilots, huh? I mean, I don't know if you had this feedback from other pilots, but also ATC. I mean, they suffer the same, you know, the same lack of recency as we do, and they mess up as well. So you have to be careful, and especially if you the beginning, you know, in the ramp up that was early summer, I was double cautious, you know. I was checking everything. If I was not really happy with some sort of instruction from ATC, I would just double check. Yeah.
I think that's another one of the key things we've been talking about in all of our safety promotion, really, is the need for just conversations, for reflection. You know, you made a good point there about ATC, and one of the challenges, one of the things we're really trying to encourage is, you know, discussion between, you know, different parts of the system, so between pilots and controllers, and, you know, people who work on the ground and engineers. You know, what are our common challenges, and how can we work together to solve them? So, you know, I love the fact that you mentioned the whole kind of the need for just conversations and this shared experience. I think that's one of the things I love so much about aviation, is that there's people doing different things, but they're all part of one kind of system.
It's
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like a chain, huh? And everyone is important to change. There was also, I don't know if this happened to you too, but with all the restrictions and the confusion about restrictions. So my airstrip is very close, as I mentioned before, is very close to the French border. So what we usually do, or we used to do, is we would just go to Perpignan to get some fuel, because fuel is much more cheap in Perpignan, cheaper than in the Spanish side of the border. So it was not clear for us if we could go, if we couldn't go. So I would start, like, you know, calling the French guys. Yeah, you can come, but restrictions were not very clear. There was this time during COVID. I'm not talking about the summer. I'm talking before that. It wasn't very clear. So you know, you would cross the border, but you were not really sure what we were doing. I don't know if all the pilots, like in close to the borders in the rest of Europe, they had the same experience, the same uncertainty as I had. But it was you know, it was another added factor, like, okay, are we supposed to go or not? Are we going to get fined?
It's one of the challenges we've had, even at the EASA level, keeping up to date with the different restrictions and what's changing in so many different countries. And, you know, again, it's one of the ideas of kind of building more this European community, particularly through the community site. So hopefully we encourage more people to kind of be part of sharing things and experiences. So, you know, in an ideal world, you would easily be able to go to the community and go, oh, you know, there's some pilots in France I could ask, or, you know, these kinds of things would be great.
It's just that the restrictions, as you say, restrictions were changing so rapidly that, you know, one day you were allowed to do a thing, and the day after you wouldn't. So it was pretty challenging at the time. But fortunately, looks like we're leaving that behind already. Fortunately, so
hopefully it looks like it's improving. So maybe just as one sort of final reflection, then, is in terms of, you know, as you learn and kind of be talking about, you know, as part of the debrief of the season, is what we've learned. What's kind of maybe the biggest thing you've learned this year as a pilot that you kind of take over the winter and into the summer?
I would say maybe self-analyze your confidence. And by that I mean sometimes you think you're better than you are, and when we're just humans. So I think it's what makes you a good pilot is having the ability to really understand your limits, and especially if you come from a time that you haven't flown that much, you have to be really careful about your skills, about your recency. So maybe that would be like the biggest lesson that I learned. So I felt it in the summer when I started flying again. Like, I used to land much better than that, and it was not only one; it was 2 or 3. You know, so yeah, things like that. I think that would be the, just being a good pilot means sometimes being humble with yourself, and that would be maybe the biggest lesson that I learned.
Fantastic, thanks, Marc. And I think it's one of the things I've really enjoyed with your app is the kind of community element to that we've been talking about. Is getting
Aviaze was actually born like that, as a community, right? Like Strava was for runners, so that's where we focused, no? Then of course we developed things like the TCAS and things like that you can by using your phone you can monitor other aircraft around you and other features like this. But it was born as a community, and just like EASA community, it's what you said at the beginning of this conversation. Aviation has this marvelous thing, which is some sort of camaraderie with other pilots, this fellowship with other pilots, and just channels like the EASA community or Aviaze community are just channels to facilitate this sort of communication between fellow pilots.
Yeah, and on that note, I think that's a great point to finish. And thanks for this quick chat, and hopefully people have found it useful as part of this season debrief. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the job you're doing at the EASA with the GA. Really great job. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marc. Take care.